Have you ever seen an alpaca in an airport? High in the Andes, their quiet migration begins, each one bound for distant farms, traveling by truck, by crate, by cold cargo hold. The morning air is thin in Puno. A frost clings to the short grass, and in the distance, a figure in a wide-brimmed hat calls to his herd with a sound passed down for generations. Peru is home to the vast majority of the world's alpacas, grazing between stone corrals and wild grasses at elevations that would leave most livestock breathless. Here, altitude is not a challenge, it's the alpaca's home. But below the clouds, a quiet shift is underway. Farmers are raising more than fleece. They're raising global stock, answering demands from breeders in Europe, North America, and Oceania, who are turning to alpacas not just for their fine fibers, but for sustainable grazing and gentler footprints on fragile land. Moving an alpaca, however, isn't as simple as leading it into a trailer. Their chests are built for the slow oxygen of high elevations, and stress, especially from heat or confinement, can be dangerous. The first step is often by foot. In remote villages, herders gather dozens of animals and walk them downhill for hours, sometimes days, until roads become wide enough for a vehicle. From there, small trucks specially fitted with straw flooring and low rails take over. Alpacas don't like dark, enclosed spaces, so many are moved during the cool light of morning, with stops to rest, rehydrate, and simply breathe. In larger hubs like Arequipa, animals are weighed, scanned, and sorted. Not all are destined for export. Only those with ideal genetics, clean fleece, and calm temperaments continue on. They are placed under quarantine, checked for parasites, vaccinated, and sometimes even trained to load calmly into crates. At this stage, the challenge becomes one of precision. Too much insulation, and they overheat. Too little, and thin air at altitude or recirculated air on plains causes stress. And time is always ticking. An alpaca shouldn't spend more than a few hours in transit without rest, yet international shipping routes can stretch for days. Still, they move. From highland farms through customs posts, across deserts, and onto cargo flights with temperature controls dialed to mimic dawn in the Andes. On board, crates are ventilated from all sides. Most hold just 1 or 2 animals to avoid panic or injury. In rare cases, flights include sedatives, administered by veterinarians who monitor vital signs from takeoff to landing. There's a quiet skill to it all, a choreography shaped as much by ancient pastoral rhythm as by veterinary science. And once they land, another world awaits, one that feels nothing like the place they came from, yet depends on the calm survival of every single animal. In the green folds of central France, a line of curious alpacas nibbles at grass just beyond a wooden gate. Their eyes are dark and wide, their movements slow, deliberate, almost meditative. To the casual passerby, they could be mistaken for local livestock, quietly adapting to a new pasture. But the truth stretches across continents. These animals once traced narrow paths through Andean hills, where winds bite and oxygen is thin. Now they stand on softly rolling land, far below their natural altitude, tended by hands that speak a different language, guided by systems designed to cushion every step between highland corral and foreign farm. The presence of alpacas outside their native home is not new, but its scale is. With rising interest in regenerative agriculture, ethical textiles, and low-impact livestock, demand for live alpacas has grown steadily and quietly. They are no longer limited to boutique breeders or niche collectors. They've become part of broader agricultural strategies. In parts of northern Europe, where overgrazed land struggles to recover from heavier hoofed animals, alpacas offer a gentler touch. In the US and Canada, they're woven into educational programs, agritourism projects, and micro-farming initiatives aimed at reconnecting people with the land. But for any of that to happen, the animal itself must be delivered, not just alive, but calm, healthy, and undisturbed by the disorientation of displacement. What makes this especially remarkable is what the alpaca is not. It is not a cargo animal by nature. It doesn't respond well to loud noises, rapid movement, or isolation. It thrives in herds, in routines, in cool air and thin oxygen. The moment it's removed from its mountain context, the logistics must shift around it. This is not a species you push through industrial systems. This is one you guide, slowly, carefully, and with immense attention to detail. Once quarantine clearance is granted and transport is approved, the physical container becomes the animal's world. For flights, this is often a wooden crate, ventilated, padded, and sized to allow limited but comfortable movement. Alpacas are usually transported in pairs, or alone if their temperament demands it. Too many in one crate and they jostle, grow anxious, or risk injuring each other. Too few and the social stress of separation can trigger refusal to eat, or worse, physical shutdown. Every crate is a compromise between safety, cost, and psychology. Inside, slatted floors allow waste to fall through and limit slipping. Straw is layered thick enough to cushion knees, but not so deep it holds heat. On long hauls, some crates are equipped with cooling fans powered by battery systems that last for the full duration of a flight. At major airports in cities like Lima or Santiago, specialized staff load these crates under low light. The goal is calm above all else. There are no loudspeakers. Movements are deliberate. Most alpacas, while initially alert, grow still once inside, closing their mouths, humming softly, a sound only heard when stress is present. These small signs matter. They tell handlers whether the transport is working, whether the animal is coping. A single stressed alpaca can set off others nearby. So even in air freight, quiet is an active strategy. Flights carrying alpacas are rarely non-stop. They pass through transit hubs, where ground teams are alerted in advance to manage climate control and avoid cargo delays. In transit zones, airport animal facilities keep temperatures consistent and lights dim. Veterinarians are on call, sometimes traveling with the animals, equipped to administer fluids or mild sedatives if necessary. But medication is a last resort. The ideal shipment is one where the animal never shows signs of distress, where its breathing remains steady, where it chews slowly, blinks often, and rests without panic. On the receiving end, import protocols are equally strict. Before even stepping onto the soil of a new country, the alpaca is met by a team prepared to assess, isolate, and ease the transition. Australia, for example, enforces post-arrival quarantine lasting weeks, during which animals are monitored for signs of disease or failure to acclimate. In some parts of Europe, mobile acclimation units allow alpacas to adjust to sea-level oxygen levels gradually, simulating highland conditions through air regulation and humidity control before introducing them to the local climate. These methods reduce the physiological shock that can occur when altitude-dependent species are suddenly brought low. The cost of this level of care is substantial. Transporting a single alpaca internationally can range into the thousands. But for breeders and conservationists, the expense is worth it, not just for fleece or breeding potential, but for what the alpaca represents: a bridge between ancient pastoral traditions and modern ecological thinking, a species that carries a millennia-old relationship with humans, now shifting into new ecosystems without destroying them. And at the center of it all is an unlikely kind of heroism: the quiet persistence of veterinarians, customs officers, animal handlers, and breeders who work behind the scenes. They adjust spreadsheets to match temperament with transport slots. They monitor airflow from a mobile phone app 10,000 meters above the Atlantic. They train animals to step forward into a crate instead of back away. They wait outside barns at 3 a.m. in Manitoba to receive a shipment that started 3 days earlier in Huancayo. These are not glamorous tasks, but without them, the entire system falters. In this choreography, each animal is more than inventory. Each one is a thread in a fabric being rewoven, where sustainable land use meets genetic preservation, where fashion begins with animal welfare, and where moving a mountain animal means recreating, for just a moment, the world it came from. Because what these systems understand, and what makes them quietly extraordinary, is that you cannot rush something built for stillness. You have to carry it at its own pace. And in doing so, you change not just where the animal lives, but how we think about movement, care, and connection across the modern world. Far from the icy wind of the Andes, on a hillside in northern Japan, an alpaca lifts its head at the sound of footsteps. Snowflakes gather gently on its fleece, undisturbed by movement. It stands still, chewing quietly, as if nothing around it has changed. But almost everything has. The temperature, the terrain, the soil under its feet, all foreign, and yet the animal adjusts. Not because it was designed for this environment, but because human hands have made the unfamiliar feel safe. Across continents, scenes like this unfold daily. In Chile, in Finland, in rural Kenya, each one a soft aftershock of global transport, proof that the system, fragile, technical, often invisible, works. And with that movement comes unexpected richness. Alpacas now walk through vineyards in South Africa, where their wool is sold alongside local wine. In rural Britain, they appear in mental health programs, their quiet demeanor soothing anxious minds. On the plains of interior Australia, herds graze between solar panels, maintaining grass cover without harming infrastructure. None of this was possible 30 years ago. Their expansion isn't powered by scale, but by precision. Each animal moved not in bulk, but with specificity. Exporters and breeders work closely to match lineage to climate, fleece type to market need, personality to setting. These are not just animals in motion. They are curated threads in a living portfolio. What makes this more than novelty is what comes after arrival. Alpacas are long-lived. Their presence isn't seasonal or transactional. It's generational. One well-placed male can shift the genetics of an entire herd over a decade. One healthy female can produce offspring that thrive in regions her ancestors never touched. This is why transport is approached with such seriousness. It's not about moving animals quickly. It's about planting something quietly enduring. That a single crate holds not just one life, but the seeds of hundreds more, echoes through every stage of planning. And it explains why so many corners of the process, from crate design to dietary adjustments, are handled with near-clinical attention to detail. Yet, for all its technical mastery, there's an emotional undercurrent to this global movement. Alpaca farmers in Norway now exchange fleece samples with producers in Bolivia. American breeders send photos of newborn crias to Peruvian mentors who trained them years before. Even language adapts. The Quechua term wakra has started appearing in European farming circles, a soft nod to the animal's ancestral roots. In this way, trade becomes conversation, each shipment a message, each adaptation a shared act of care. And care, in the end, is what defines this entire structure. Not efficiency, not profit margins, but a quiet ethic that has followed the alpaca for centuries. From Incan civilizations that wrapped royalty in its fiber, to modern textile labs measuring its thermal properties by micron. Even now, the value lies not just in the fleece, but in the way the animal is treated before shearing ever begins. Clean pastures, shade and ventilation, companionship, minimal stress. These aren't luxuries. They're prerequisites. The same gentleness that makes the fleece prized makes the animal sensitive to mistreatment. That sensitivity demands new thinking, not just about alpacas, but about the systems built to move and house them. In Peru, research is underway to create biodegradable crate liners made from discarded banana fiber, materials that cushion alpacas in flight and return to the soil once discarded. In Argentina, shipping corridors are being mapped to optimize rest stops, not for drivers, but for livestock comfort. These changes, while minor in appearance, ripple outward. When the conditions of movement improve, survival rates increase. When survival rates increase, genetic diversity expands. When diversity expands, resilience follows. And woven through all of it is a quiet marvel that an animal so closely tied to a specific place can now live in so many. that from the ridgelines of the Andes, it has found its way into suburban fields and rewilded hills, not through force or mass production, but through care. An alpaca does not tolerate roughness. It does not respond to pressure. What it needs is time, softness, and an absence of fear. And in building systems that provide that, something else is made possible. A kind of agricultural transport that feels less like industry and more like stewardship. So the next time you run your hands across alpaca fleece, smooth, warm, impossibly light, pause. There is no machine that made that texture, no shortcut that preserved its quality, only an animal that was raised with quiet, moved with patience, and placed on another continent, under another sun, in a field where it could breathe easily. That softness you feel isn't just a product. It's the outcome of thousands of small decisions made in favor of gentleness. And that, too, is worth noticing. From highland silence to distant fields, each alpaca arrives not by force, but by care. So when you feel its fleece, remember, it was moved gently, and the softness is real.